So tell me the story of where this all started. I mean, take us back to little Rob, maybe 10, 11 years old. What were you doing? Did you see this in your future?
I mean, look, it's you can't predict this wild of an existence, even at a ripe young age of 10 or 12 when your ambitions were to be a pro skateboarder. Especially in Ohio, where you grew up in sort of a fixed mindset community. You went to a fixed mindset school. You had fixed mindset parents who told you when you said, I'm going to be a pro skateboarder, they said, no, you're going to have to get a job go to college like the rest of us type of mentality. But I think it was what happened to me at a really young age is I began to take risks inside my universe and they would work. When I wanted to skate a ramp for the first time when I was 11, so I cold called the skate shop and said, if I, get 10 people to pay, would you let me skate for free? Because I didn't have any money. And they thought it was so ridiculous that they said, why don't you just come down and skate? And so that bold move created this opportunity. I went and skated. I skated the ramp so well that they said, you have a lot of potential. I didn't even know what that meant, but they sponsored me at that point, right? And then that shop was owned by a 19-year-old serial entrepreneur. So that embedded in me that like, man, I'm going to be a pro skateboarder and I'm going to build businesses just like my guy, Jimmy. So that's the unusual foundation that I was raised on.
So did you always have this kind of entrepreneurial spirit, this bug inside of you, even as you started your skateboard career where you went, I'm going to own something one day. I'm going to run a business?
I mean, look, I painted a self-portrait of myself my last year or my junior year of high school, where I had a matching hat and footwear with a skateboard with piles of money and an art easel, right? And it really became the fruition of like where I would eventually become and create this extraordinary wealth with like a matching hat and footwear in the history of the skateboard. But, I think the unusual upbringing I had was everyone around me was starting companies. So it wasn't even like a thing to me that was what I was supposed to do too. So as I watched the Jimmy George, who owned the skate shop that I was sponsored by, start company after company, and then he, along with the guys that I was sponsored with, moved back to Dayton, Ohio, and started the Alien Workshop. And I was in the process of creating the name and watching that get built. I just knew the first thing I needed to do when I moved to California was start a company. And the very first thing I did was connect with Tracker Trucks, a big manufacturer out there, and created Orion Aluminum, my very first company that I created from the idea stage. And that was at, 17 years old.
Yeah, it was one of many companies that you founded, worked with. As you started getting into business, you also were kind of ramping up in your professional skateboard career. Where was the kind of culmination where you went, you know what, the skateboard thing's amazing, but I love this business thing? Was there ever a decision you had to make to go a certain way?
I think like the beauty of skateboarding and being the professional skateboarder with the platform inside what I'd considered a sort of isolated market, right? So I had control of the media that would amplify ideas. I had relationships with distribution, which at the time was just skate shops, right? So anything that I started in that era would always work. So it gave me this false understanding of that I was an amazing business guy because I would create something and it automatically become profitable and successful when really I had this unfair advantage was I had a high profile and in a singular industry, had expertise in how to innovate in it, and then had access to the entire ecosystem of customers, media, and distribution. But in my mind, I just thought I was a really smart business guy, right? So despite doing all of that business building inside of skateboarding, I every time I would try, I did record labels and skate shops and these other sort of businesses outside of skateboarding that wouldn't work, that would confuse me pretty significantly. So I was always a little gun shy on really understanding what was what was I best at and where was my real opportunity to create something special, which had me dabbling for years in all different types of stuff.